Are your PS5 games disappearing? We're about to get some really cool accessories for the PlayStation 5. Is Red Dead Redemption 2 finally getting the update people want? We have some disappointing news about a Red Dead Redemption 1 and a GTA 4 remaster. We've also got a slightly disappointing update from Sucker Punch, and is the PS5 about to get more expensive? We're gonna find out in this week's episode of my PlayStation News Show. As you can see, I'm still on vacation here in Michigan at my parents' house. I don't have the great brick wall or the Halloween decorations, but the news keeps coming, so I gotta talk about it. So first up, let's talk about these disappearing PS5 games. And no, I know this sounds familiar. You probably have deja vu right now. I am not talking about PT, the playable teaser for Kojima's Silent Hills, which, rip in peace, I wish we got that game. So if you guys didn't know, last year when the new Matrix movie came out, there was a really cool Unreal Engine 5 tech demo that launched on the PS5, the Xbox Series X, and PC that basically comes along with a Matrix City. It had some really cool recreations of movie scenes from the other Matrix movies that honestly got really close to being photorealistic, and the actual gameplay in the Matrix demo, which was called Matrix Awakens, was really cool, and it showed off the engine in an awesome way. But unfortunately, it looks like this demo had a shelf life, because by the time you're watching this video, it might already be pulled from the PlayStation Store. Now, there's no word on whether or not it's still going to work if you have it downloaded to your console when it's removed from the PlayStation Store, but regardless, if this is something that you like messing around with, specifically driving around that big city, I would go ahead and download it right away so that you have it on your console, or at least in your account. With PT, initially when they took it off the PlayStation Store without warning, people were still able to download it from their PlayStation Network account, but then eventually Konami was able to figure something out with Sony, so that Sony was able to remove that playable teaser from people's PlayStation accounts, which obviously isn't good, and I feel like we could see a similar situation with this Matrix Awakens Unreal Engine 5 demo. Things got so crazy with PT that if you still had the game on your PlayStation 4 console, even though you couldn't re-download it, the game would still work. So PlayStation 4s with PT on their hard drive were selling on eBay for like hundreds and hundreds of dollars above MSRP. And now people have got it running on PC. There have actually been Unreal Engine 5 remakes of the PT demo, so there are ways to play it if you missed out on it back in the day. But it was a weird moment for a second, and I never really thought this would happen again. So to see it happen again with the Matrix of all things, with a movie that's only about 6 months old, it feels kind of crazy to remove it that fast, because even if they don't want to keep updating it, it looks and runs really well. And I feel like a lot of the Unreal Engine 5 games that have been announced or have come out don't look nearly as good as this demo. So it's still a really good showcase for what Unreal Engine 5 can do. But regardless, if this is something you want to check out, make sure it's downloaded to your PS5 before it's gone. If you want a cool new upgrade for your PS5, check out all the links in the description. I've got new SSDs, controllers, monitors, all the new in-zone accessories, pretty much anything you need for your PS5. Next up, let's talk about the continuing saga of Red Dead Redemption 2. So there have been a lot of problems in the Red Dead community. Basically, people are upset that Rockstar has completely abandoned Red Dead Online in favor of GTA Online, mainly because people are spending way more money in GTA Online. But man, I went back recently and tried Red Dead Online. I made a character, I did some bounty missions, and it was awesome. So yeah, I'm on the side of people who are upset that Rockstar has completely abandoned this awesome online world. The other issue with Red Dead Redemption 2 is that the single player has also been pretty much abandoned. PC players know all about this. Rockstar refuses to patch this game. It has a lot of weird issues with it that they just won't fix. But on the console side, no matter what console you play this on, whether it's PS4, PS4 Pro, or PS5, it's still capped at 30 frames per second, which I don't need to tell you why that's bad. This game specifically is also kind of a mess at 30 frames per second because there's insane input lag. It's so bad that it's definitely still there if you're playing at 60 FPS, but it's less noticeable, and I would call it manageable. And once you try this game at 60 FPS, it's really hard to go back to 30. There's been a ton of news leaking out of Rockstar lately, and no one really knows what to believe, but it seems like we're finally getting some good news related to Red Dead Redemption 2 though, because it looks like Rockstar is finally going to give us a next-gen version of the game. Now, of course, with how they handled the next-gen upgrade of GTA 5, a lot of people are kind of nervous about this. Like, are they going to charge us full price? Is it going to be the same team that worked on the trilogy of the old GTA games that came out as a complete broken mess? So in my opinion, all they really need to do is bump up the frame rate and the resolution. The game looks incredible still to this day. It's one of the best looking games of last generation, and it's still running laps around next gen games on the PS5 and Xbox Series X. So as far as as the actual graphics go, I don't think they really need to do a ton. I just hope that they release this as a patch that's free instead of charging me $70 for a frame rate and resolution upgrade. But you know, with the way Rockstar's been behaving lately, I could totally see them charging me $70 just for a small upgrade like that. Or at the very least charging $30 to upgrade my PS4 copy. Neither of those options are good, but it's good to hear that they're allegedly going back and fixing one of the biggest problems with Red Dead Redemption 2. Hopefully that brings in enough players for them to start paying attention to the online. Next up, let's talk about another good sign that Rockstar is regaining focus, but it's really like a monkey paw curling in story, because while we want them to patch up Red Dead Redemption 2, there were rumors that they were also working on GTA 4 remastered or even a full-on remake, and Red Dead Redemption 1 remastered or a full-on remake in the Red Dead Redemption 2 engine. So long story short, they've been working on this for a while, and these plans aren't completely scrapped. They're just shifting focus to work on GTA 6, getting all hands on deck, and also this rumored update for Red Dead Redemption 2, which honestly, I don't fault them for. I think they realize that they're kind of in a weird spot right now. They lost their lead writer, they lost a lot of the talent behind GTA 4 and 5, and basically all the stories and all their best games. So they got to get this right. So in my opinion, them shifting focus from a weird remake that no one really wants right now over to the full GTA 6 game that people have been begging for years, that's honestly a smart move on Rockstar's part. And for me personally, as someone who plays Red Dead Redemption's Undead Nightmare around Halloween every year, that game still holds up. Between Red Dead Redemption 1 all the way up to Red Dead Redemption 2, there really wasn't that much of a big improvement on their core shooting mechanics. Like in both games, you basically still need to use Deadeye all the time to be accurate, and it's still really fun. I think it could definitely use a remake in the Red Dead 2 engine because they have John Marston modeled and they already have all the voice lines, so if they could just recreate it with all the assets they already have from Red Dead Redemption 2, I would say why not? But again, I think it's good that they're shifting focus and just sticking with GTA 6 for now. The disappointment train keeps on rolling because now we got to talk about Sucker Punch. So this is the studio that made the Infamous franchise, the Sly Cooper franchise, and of course Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima, we recently learned, got its last patch from Sucker Punch and they're moving on to their next game. And right around then, we started to hear a bunch of rumors that we might be seeing a new game in the Infamous series, that we might be seeing a new game in the Sly Cooper series, or at the very least a remaster or remake of Infamous 1 and 2. Things got so crazy that Sucker Punch actually had to put out a statement that basically said no, they're not working on Sly Cooper or Infamous right now, they're focusing on their next game, which we all can basically safely assume is Ghost of Tsushima 2, since they've recently been hiring people who can work on open world stealth action games, which I don't know a better way to describe Ghost of Tsushima. But after talking about PS3 emulation on the PS5 in my last video and getting super excited about the potential of playing Infamous again, I'm kind of bummed that they're not going back to this franchise. I mean, superhero games right now are at an all-time high between Spider-Man, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man 2, I mean even going back to Arkham Knight. I'm super excited for the future of it. It seems like a great time for Sucker Punch to revisit their superhero series because they mastered the whole good and bad aspect of being a superhero with Infamous way back on the PS3, and I feel like that came out at around a time when people weren't really adopting the PS3, and I feel like that series kind of was slept on back in that generation. So yeah, it's disappointing to hear they're not working on that. On the Sly Cooper front, I'm gonna be real, I was never a huge Sly Cooper fan. I played Sly Cooper 4 on the Vita, I thought it was fun. I played the trilogy on my PS3, I also thought it was pretty cool. I liked that they announced Sly 4 in that trilogy once you beat all 3 games, but Sly 4 wasn't even made by Sucker Punch, so to hear Sucker Punch say that nothing's being worked on in that franchise too, I guess that is a little disappointing because Sony's bought so many studios. You'd think some of them could keep these old franchises alive. Like, man, it would be great if we could get a new Jak and Daxter game from another studio that isn't Naughty Dog. You know what I mean? Either way, I have a feeling that most people are going to be excited that they're working on Ghost of Tsushima 2 instead of these offshoot projects, because that means we'll get Ghost of Tsushima 2 sooner rather than later. But yeah, after recently hearing that every Sony studio has to work on multiple games, and then to get this news that all they're working on is the follow-up to Ghost of Tsushima, it feels kind of weird that they're not revisiting their best franchise with Infamous. So if you've taken your car to the gas station in the past few months, you're probably realizing that things are getting more expensive, and it looks like video games aren't going to be immune to that. We've already seen Sony and to some extent Microsoft increase the price of games to $70, which they say needed to happen because they haven't increased game prices in so long, and inflation is basically making games less expensive while games are getting more expensive to make. I am not an economist, that's just basically summing up what we've heard. I personally haven't seen a game that feels like it's worth $70 out of this generation, and I'm just going to leave it there. But it seems like Microsoft and Sony are getting scared that people are going to spend less money on video games, because when you go to the grocery store and stuff is like 2 times the price, and when you go to the gas pump and you're paying like $6 and change, you're going to start rethinking your big $70 game purchases. There's no real way around that. And of course, there are other options people have, like waiting for a game to go on sale, and also of course subscribing to one of the new PS Plus options. So I guess the timing is better than anyone thought for that. It's bringing me back to 2008 and 9 when they had to extend the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation to pretty much a decade because people just couldn't afford to buy new consoles, and they were really stretching those consoles as thin as they could go. Like, think about it. Gas is expensive right now, food is expensive right now, and we're getting Modern Warfare 2. It really does just feel like a flashback to 2009. And obviously, I don't think that's good, but it's nice to know that this time around, we have some other options like PS Plus being upgraded. And if you've been feeling the wallet squeeze and you haven't been able to pick up games at full price, I would definitely encourage you to check out PS Plus Extra or some of the summer sales that are going on in the PlayStation Store right now, because there are a ton of games on sale and included in that subscription that are like the best games Sony's released over the past few years. So yeah, if you haven't checked either of those out, you can look through the catalog of games before you subscribe. If you're trying to save some money, that's a good way to do it. And the last news story I have for you guys today is one I'm most excited to talk about because people have data mined new accessories for the PlayStation 5 that are actually classic accessories. So if you were growing up in the early 2000s like I was, Sony was releasing some really weird stuff. Like they had cameras for the PSP, they had a camera for the PlayStation 2 called the iToy, and of course going up to the PS4 generation, they also had a camera, they had PlayStation Move, and all of these accessories have been pretty much lost to time except for the PlayStation Move, which they ended up using as the controller for PSVR 1, which was interesting if not a little bit weird. But people have been data mining some files that basically show icons for old accessories like the Sony iToy, and knowing that we have PSP and PS1 emulation on the PS5 right now, it got me thinking of how awesome it would be if Sony took a page out of Nintendo's book and said, hey, if you're subscribed to PS Plus Premium or Extra, you can buy a DualShock 1 for your PlayStation 5 to play Ape Escape, the first game that used the dual analog sticks in the first hardware revision of the DualShock 1. I mean, there are plenty of examples of how these retro accessories could be used, but especially if they are going to be releasing emulatable PS3 games, it would be sweet if they could also release a DualShock 3 or even a DualShock 2 to play the PS2 games that are available on PS Plus as well. This is obviously a byproduct of the PlayStation 5 just essentially being a cheaper gaming PC. They can put the drivers for all of these different controllers in the device, and it's kind of like a heel turn from what we saw where when the console launched and you can't use your DualShock 4 for any new games. Of course, that's because the DualShock 4 doesn't have the adaptive triggers or the haptic feedback, but all that would really take is a patch on Sony's end to allow DualShock 4 use, because when these games come out on PC, like when Returnal for example comes out on PC, a game you can't use your DualShock 4 with on the PS5, I guarantee you'll be able to use that DualShock 4 with it on top of an Xbox Series X controller and an Xbox One controller on PC. So at that point, there's no reason for Sony to not update the game on PS5 to allow DualShock 4 use as well. So to see them tinkering with releasing old accessories for the PlayStation 5, it seems like they're kind of seeing the light there and realizing that people want the PS5 regardless of whether or not they have the new controller available, and they'll use whatever controller they want to use as long as they can get their hands on the console. Like my prime example of nostalgia overload would be playing Resident Evil Director's Cut with a wireless DualShock 1 and then switching over to Resident Evil 4 on the PlayStation 2 and being able to use a DualShock 2 at the same time. There's a lot of cool stuff they could do here. The one controller I don't see coming back though is definitely 6-axis. People do not like that one at all, and honestly, I can't blame them. Felt pretty cheap.